Welcome to the Lifestyle Property Podcast. I'm JB Greaves, your host and professional property investor. I'm here to bring you insights, home truths, and powerful stories about what really goes on in property investment, business, growing your dream lifestyle. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to Lifestyle Property, and welcome to episode 32, which is titled My Biggest Lessons So Far on the Podcast and a Major Announcement. And today I want to run through for you the biggest lessons I've learned over the past 7 months of doing this podcast. And the reason is I've got a big announcement, and very sadly, hope you find this sad, I certainly do, this is my last podcast episode. Okay, so after 32 episodes, once a week, and after 7 months, I'm closing down the Lifestyle Property Podcast. Now, let me share with you honestly why, authentically, raw, vulnerably, the reasons why, and also share with you the biggest lessons that I've learned over the past 7 months. These lessons will help you in your property business and in life. Okay, so why am I ending the podcast? Now, I've enjoyed it. I have loved it, but I've had a real strong think about my why in recent weeks and months. Now, as a property investor in the past 6 years, I've worked hard to build lifelong freedom, and I really enjoy time freedom. And podcasts are not time freedom; they're not. But a good podcast, and I'd like to think that my podcast is very good. It takes a lot of time and mind space as to plan them. So each podcast has to be planned, wrote, recorded, edited, published, promoted, and it turns you into a marketeer. And that's not my goal. I don't want to be a marketeer in life. Some people want to. I don't wish to be. And in recent weeks, after coming back from Brazil, and I've been just catching up with family and friends and in my portfolio, I was a little bit behind the curve with the podcast. And recently I was having to rush the recording of them, and I don't want to do anything half-assed. It's not right. And I've had a real close think about how I want to spend my time and my energy and my everything. And I want to enjoy it. I built this amazing portfolio for time freedom, for holidays, for time off, for family. I want to spend time with my family and have fun with them. And it's really important to me that. And I want to keep growing my portfolio. I'm a property investor. I'm not a podcaster. I'm not a podcaster. I'm a property investor. And I want to help people. And I really want to help people. And I won't be stopping this aspect of what I'm doing here. I'm just going to be helping people in a better way. More effective way. I want to reach more people, help more people. Now, my goal when starting the podcast was I've got this big goal. I call it growing an army. By growing an army of goodwill by helping people. I want to help thousands, if not tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands, or millions of people. Let's aim big. Let's say millions. And then I want to positively change society with this army, because there's a lot about society that I don't like. There's so many things, but I won't go off into that tangent. You probably hear some emotion in my voice as I record this episode, because it's not an easy one, because I put a lot of heart and soul into everything that I do. But I've just decided to put that heart and soul into other things moving forwards. And I've really learned over the past, and I knew this before, but it's really become clear that in terms of helping people with regards to, I've got ambitions to help people away from property investment in terms of charities and my mission that I'm moving into. But within property investment, certainly what I've seen is it's the support and the guidance and the advice that I can offer people that really helps them in terms of speaking to you. So you listening to this podcast, by speaking to you about your background and your situation, I can give better advice that's more suited to you, and I can help you more that way, rather than through a podcast, because a podcast is a one-way conversation. I'm planning and recording them and then telling you, but you'll often have questions and things, and that there's no communication here. And it's because we're all different. So we all start and go on through our property investment journey from a different place. So we need unique support. Okay, so we all need something different, and this is where I want to put my time and my heart. So I want to enjoy it, and that's why I'm moving away from the podcast to love life, more time with family. But I will keep helping people. I will massively. Okay, but where I can help people most now is through that support and that advice I give people on a more human to human level. Okay, it's much better. And I'm a strong believer that how we do anything is how we do everything. And that's why my podcast has been professional. It's been very honest, very authentic, and it's been packed full of value. Okay, and I wouldn't be able to continue in that vein for the foreseeable, because you see when so many podcasts, they just dip. I've realised this now. I've peeled back the lens, and I've done this from the other side. I've thought back on some podcasts that I've listened to that were amazing early on, and then they got really crap because the producer probably thought that some of the feelings that I could be doing more here, I could be doing other things here, this is taking up too much of my time and energy and mind space, so the quality really dips down. And I don't want that. I don't want to be on episode number 89 and then just be regurgitating existing content or just talking crap or not having prepared proper notes, because each of my podcasts has been planned out. And they're packed full of honest value for you. And it just felt right. So I was sharing with someone recently, and I was just sharing like I was stressed the first time in a long time. I was stressed early on in property, but now I haven't been for years. I've been on top of things. Everything's been kind of golden and rosy. And okay, you have bad events, something might bad happen, bad of this, but you just overcome it, no problem. But I was stressed recently because I was late getting back to people. So some of my mentees had asked me questions, and some other people, and I was late getting back to them because I was rushing, reading, trying to record the next podcast episode. I was like, what am I doing here? Here I am trying to write a podcast and record it, but I'm not getting back to the people in my life, to my friends, to my family, to my mentees, that was causing me stress, because stress doesn't come through hard work. I heard a Jeff Bezos video some time ago, and it's so true. Stress is not when we're working hard. Stress is when we're not solving the problems. Yeah, so when we're putting things off that we know we should be doing, we're not solving the problems we know we should be solving, that's when stress comes. And I hadn't got ill for 2 years straight, but about a month ago, I was starting to feel ill and overwhelmed again. And when I explained this to my friend, they were like, why are you doing the podcast? The podcast is not serving your bigger mission here, because it was restricting my ability to help people. I help people all day long in my business, and I was not able to do that. So it just felt tight. It feels right. So this is the reason why I'm not just gonna be putting. I will be putting my feet up. I will be. Truth be told, I will be. But I'll be putting that time and that energy and that focus into good. Okay, so I will put it into enjoying life more, because I've worked hard to create the lifestyle in the past 6 years, so that should be enjoyed. And I want to put it back into my portfolio, because I'm still growing my portfolio. We're actively still buying more SAs and holiday lets and Airbnbs. There's a huge amount of change in my sector right now, and it presents an opportunity for those who take advantage and a threat for those who don't, quite simply. And I'll always be on the opportunity side. So I want to go back into there, and I want to help more people. And I want to help my mentees who have invested in us and me. I want to give them closer support. And I want each and every one of them to succeed and do amazing things. So I want to, I'm withdrawing my podcast graciously. And just one final reason of why is we choose property investment for freedom, for time freedom and location freedom. And that's why we choose property investment over growing a really noisy, busy business. But podcasting is a noisy, busy business. It requires a lot of mind space and time, and it's taken me away from my why, my life, my investment portfolio, my family, my mentees. So I'm moving back into there. Yeah, this is why. But what have we learned? What have I learned over the past 7 months? And what have you learned if you listen to the podcast, just to recap? Well, firstly, in terms of what you've learned, I'd like to think a lot. Now, if you haven't, if you've caught up with this podcast later on, no problem. I'd heavily advise and recommend that you go back to the start, because I've made sure to pack each and every single episode packed full of honest, insights and tips and values from the real life world of property investment. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up for a while. So if you've not listened to all of them, I'd go back and listen to them whilst you can. Okay, brilliant. Because they're packed full of honest insights for you. And then my lessons I've got for you. And what lessons have I learned? And the lessons that I've learned will be, alongside what I've just shared in the past 10 minutes in terms of podcasting, I'll share what I've learned from my guests that I've had on. And just to recap there, because I think they're really, really powerful. So the first guest that I had on was my business partner, Phil Saunders, in episode 10, where we had a almost therapy-like session going through our biggest mistakes in property. And the big lesson I've learned lots of things from Phil. In business partners, you share and learn a whole journey together. My big takeaway from that episode was the power of people. You know, it's who we surround ourselves with sets us up for our success. And Phil spoke about it a lot in terms of the best and worst things. And it's so true. The people that we surround ourselves with, you want to have a really high bar. Really, really, really high bar. So have a high bar in every facet of that, you know. Have a high bar with who your solicitor's going to be, who your architect's going to be, who your mentor's going to be, who your cleaner's going to be, everything in your business. And if you do that, you have a far better lifestyle and a far better business, a far better portfolio. Yeah, so, really, you're just the kind of the people in our portfolio underpin it. And then in episode 18, I heard from Nana, who's an amazing guy that I've known over the past 6 years now. Nana and his wife Emily, they're Swedish investors that have been based in Sweden but growing a portfolio in the UK. And now they've recently moved to Spain. So, I mean, there's so much that was unpacked in that episode, you know, in terms of you can invest in the UK from abroad. Okay, you can even do it if you're a non-UK citizen. They're non-UK citizens, and so you pay a little bit more in terms of stamp duty, a little bit more in terms of interest rates. But there's so many benefits we have in the UK that when we take for granted. Things like the supply and demand equation, things like the capital growth that we get. So it's a fascinating interview, and a big lesson that I took away. I suppose I knew that I could move abroad, and I've considered it for a while, but I've got family ties. But it's more what I learned from that was the importance of knowledge. So if you've heard that podcast, if not, I definitely recommend going back to listen to it. Nana made mistakes by, he says he bought an illegal HMO. And if he had the right knowledge in place from the outset, he wouldn't have made that. So we're gonna there's one that we're gonna learn regardless. You will learn it regardless, but by either you learn from other people's mistakes, so you don't make your own, and that's the easier way. That way is going to save you a huge amount of time, energy, heartache, loss, tears, you name it. Or you learn by making the mistakes yourself. And that was reinforced in me. It's so important that the knowledge, so we don't go make those mistakes. Just allow you don't. Some small mistakes early on, no problem. Win or we learn, but you don't want to make really big, huge mistakes because it's going to stop you in your tracks. Momentum is really important in business and in life. In podcasting, in sport, in everything, and in property investment. So we want positive momentum. So learn from other people's mistakes. Okay? And this podcast, what's been recorded for you, will help you with that. And then George and Hannah, it was I love my interview with George and Hannah because they're just wonderful people. Episode 21. And George and Hannah shared a very honestly and very openly, which I really, really appreciated, and I hope you appreciate that as well, in terms of how it's so important to choose one strategy, focus on that strategy, rinse and repeat it, and then you can scale it. Okay, because we get shiny penny syndrome in property investment. There's so much noise, so many strategies. Should I do this? Should I do that? And it happens to all of us. We get pulled into directions, and then they have to remind themselves, not to do that, to stay really, really focused on your strategy and your niche. And all strategies work. There is a easier format to follow in terms of cash flow first, and then capital, and then slow assets later. That'll speed you up massively. But all the strategies works, but choosing one which aligns to you, that works for you in that current economic market. But just don't jump into shiny alternatives. Every property investment strategy is getting more specialist. It's really great. We're getting more professional as a sector. So the professionals in each niche really thrive, and the ones who dabble just get left by the wayside. So don't dabble. Don't dabble. And I really liked how Georgiana shared in terms of how bigger isn't always better. Okay, I hope you don't have a dirty mind. Clean minds only. Last podcast. Let's keep that clean. But bigger isn't always better. Okay, because it's we might think, okay, I'm going to move from this to this right up to a commercial development or a new build, and they're just more complex. There's more things that if you're building properties from scratch compared to doing a cosmetic refurb, they're very different entities. Okay, so bigger isn't always better. Okay, boring, rinse, repeat, do again is beautiful. Boring is beautiful. Okay, so avoid the shiny penny syndrome. Choose one core strategy, focus on it, rinse and repeat, scale it. Once you've nailed it and you've hit your goals and you've systemized, then you can diversify, but only then. And lastly, but not leastly, my last guest on the podcast was Johnny Landals, a wonderful guy based in Yorkshire, done amazing things recently. Johnny and Natalie have done, I can't believe how, but they at the same time they were having their first child in a house full of wonderful dogs, whilst renovating their own house and getting their first holiday let and running their other side businesses. And they were doing all of that at the same time because of the power of their mindset. Okay, so Johnny's got a wonderful growth mindset, and we all want to have and work and develop and continually enhance our growth mindsets. Okay, so we win or we learn. Abundant, positive, solution-orientated, full of belief, full of collaboration and teamwork. Okay, being humble enough to ask for help. Okay, but being knowledgeable enough to take action. Okay, it's so powerful. Honestly, Johnny had a busy business. He's had a gym and personal trainer business, while starting investing, whilst having his first child, whilst this and that and the other, and they've nailed it. So that you might have heard on Johnny's podcast that Johnny did a rent to rent on a holiday let deal. Had Sykes Cottage come out and give an income projection on that deal, and Johnny doubled it. So I think it was I'm going to get his numbers wrong here, but I think it was something like Sykes predicted that it would make something like £80,000 to £90,000 per annum gross per year, and Johnny and Natalie doubled it. Okay, and they did that for lots of reasons, but what I took from the podcast was that growth mindset. It's what I kept writing down. I like to take notes. Well, I say I like to now because of former. This is my last podcast, but I like to take notes as I was interviewing people, so I could catch the kind of key lessons for you and emphasize that, which I hope was useful for you. And I really circle growth mindset for Johnny because he's got that in abundance, in spades. So yeah, they're my biggest lessons from the podcast, guys. Now, I may do a different form in the future, maybe in person. I've not planned that yet. For now, this is a sabbatical. Okay, so this is all I know now is this is the last podcast episode that's been planned, edited, wrote, and will be published. But I'm not going to stop helping people. I will leave my podcast episodes online for at least 2 months. Okay, so if you're new to the podcast, or if you want to re-listen to any of the episodes, I'll leave them on Apple and Spotify for the next 2 months. So in April and May 2025, they'll be on there. After that, likely not. Okay, so if you want any help or advice, just reach out to me. Okay, I'm a human. I'm not a robot. I like to connect with people. So if I can help you in any way, I'll give you any advice or any support. My name's Jamie Greaves. My taglines, my social media links will be in the podcast notes for this podcast. I'm mostly on Facebook just because I'm getting older now. I don't have TikTok or Snapchat. I am on LinkedIn, and I recently started up a Instagram page. So Jamie Greaves. So if I can help you in any way, reach out to me. And the only last thing to say now, I'm getting quite emotional recording this because I have enjoyed it, but I have to do this for my lifestyle moving forwards and my people in my life. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your kindness. Until we speak again, I wish you nothing but the best. Put into action everything you've heard and learned from this podcast. Go and move your life and property business forward. And until we speak again, goodbye.